Why are dams in China becoming a cause of flooding instead of a tool to fight floods? Why do the CCP leaders have an unusual zest for building dams on rivers? This is not an ocean, nor a big lake, but a town downstream of Zhengzhou, northern China. In this town's jurisdiction, 62 natural villages have been completely flooded.
这是现在这个血仙道快速通道现场的情况。这是防洪堤。
The flooding in these villages was not due to torrential rains. Instead, it was sunny when it happened. However, in an effort to preserve the urban center, the local government blew up the levee to discharge the floodwater. As a result, hundreds of thousands of villagers had to flee. Why was the urban area in danger of flooding? Because it was located downstream. When the major flood occurred in Henan province, many reservoirs upstream had been releasing floodwater. Previously, on July 20, the city of Zhengzhou in Henan province suffered a horrendous incident where discharged floodwater backed up into the city, leading to a massive loss of property and life. More and more analysts and water experts believe that the main reason for Zhengzhou's tragedy was the discharge from the Changshuang Reservoir, located about 2 kilometers from Zhengzhou city, when it secretly opened its floodgates without any prior warning to the public. The reservoirs and dams in Henan province failed like dominoes, breaching one after another, starting from the upstream, midstream to the downstream. As a result, many riverbanks had to be blown open manually to release the floodwater. What happened in Henan province in July is a snapshot of what is happening across China. As the rainy season continues into August, more reservoirs in China will be put to the test. China has more than 90,000 reservoirs, of which close to 24,000 are large-scale dams, making it the country with the largest number of reservoirs and dams in the world. China has 45,000 rivers crisscrossing the country. It is one of the countries that have the most number of rivers in the world. China used to be known as the Divine Land in ancient times. In its 5,000 years of uninterrupted civilization, Chinese people, from the emperor to the common people, valued harmony between nature and human beings and revered heaven and earth, mountains and rivers. They believed that there was life to mountains and rivers, and divine beings existed among them who must be respected. So, ancient Chinese did not encourage the construction of dams on rivers. Before the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, seized power in 1949, mainland China had only a few dams. There were 20 reservoirs concentrated mainly in 3 provinces in the northeastern part of China, built during the Japanese invasion. After the communist regime was established in 1949, the then Minister of Water Resources led a delegation to the Soviet Union to study and happily returned with what they thought to be a useful experience, which was to build reservoirs and dams extensively. The number one reason was that reservoirs were thought to store water in the rainy season to prevent floods and to release water in the dry season to cope with droughts. However, that is only what it is on the surface. The deeper reason is that it fits well with the CCP's management philosophy. If the entire country's water resources are controlled by one party, it is much easier to manage its people. The CCP fights to control the sky, the earth, and the people. For everything it does to control the sky and the earth, it eventually serves to control the people. The second reason is that the construction of major infrastructures such as reservoirs and dams and hydroelectric power production can boost the country's GDP. For example, according to the chairman of the China Power Construction Group, the general contractor for the Muatua hydropower station in Tibet, when the station becomes operational, it will bring Tibet more than RMB 20 billion or US 3.09 billion in annual revenue. Muatua is a large hydropower station on the lower reaches of the Yarlung-Qiangpo River, which is currently being built and receiving significant attention from the CCP. In 2019, the local revenue for Tibet was about RMB 22.2 billion or US 3.43 billion. The central government provides a subsidy of RMB 190 billion or US 29.4 billion. It means that Tibet depends almost entirely on the central government's subsidy to run its operations. Therefore, for local governments, increasing local GDP is the most significant achievement for their officials. In reality, on the Yarlung-Zangbo River, the Zhangmu hydropower station has been built. With a short distance of 38.5 kilometers, the CCP has built a series of 5 hydropower stations. In addition, there are 3 other dams and other stretches. In total, there are 8 dams in the middle reaches of the Yarlung-Qiangpo River. With nearly 100,000 reservoirs in China, the data shows that their capacity can meet China's water consumption for a whole year. In theory, China has enough water in the reservoirs even if it does not rain for a year. Hence, no concern for droughts nor floods. However, in reality, China's reservoir management is in disarray and the construction quality of these projects has been compromised in every way. First, in order to store the floodwater in the reservoirs and use it in times of drought, the reservoirs need to be large enough to hold the flow of rivers for a year in their stomachs. But for various reasons, China has lowered the building standards for reservoirs and dams around the country. In the case of the Three Gorges Reservoir on the Yangtze River, the Soviets designed the water level to be 265 meters above sea level. In actuality, the water level is 175 meters above sea level, and its capacity is less than 1/10 of the annual flow. If the reservoir does not have enough capacity to hold a full year's flood, when the water level in the reservoir exceeds the warning line, in order to protect the safety of the reservoir, it is necessary to discharge water from time to time. Second, the construction quality of reservoirs and dams in China is generally not high. The above-mentioned Changshuang Reservoir in Zhengzhou has been said to have 13 piping problems in its dam by the Chinese Ministry of Water Resources on July 21. Previously, Chinese media reported that 3 dams in China were breached in 48 hours after July 18. In 2020, China's Ministry of Water Resources said that China had 81,000 small reservoirs and on average 73 collapses each year. In 2006, China's Ministry of Water Resources stated that 3,486 dams collapsed between 1954 and 2005 due to substandard quality and poor management. On June 11, 2019, at a meeting held at China's State Council, an official from the Ministry of Water Resources explained that there were more than 98,000 reservoirs and dams in China, and more than 66,000 of them were once risky and dangerous. The other 16,000 dams are the currently listed risky dams. According to this data, there are more than 82,000 formerly and currently dangerous dams, accounting for 84% of the total number of reservoir dams in China. Tian also said most of the dams were built between the 1950s and 1970s. Based on the 50-year average service life, these dams are at the end of their life or beyond their service term. The president of the Chinese National Committee on Large Dams said at a conference in 2017 that more than 95% of China's dams are made of earth and rock, and more than 95% are older dams built before the 1980s. Earth and rock dams are more prone to problems. China's high dams, over 200 meters, are mainly concentrated in the western part of the country, with high altitude, high earthquake intensity, high side slopes, and extremely complex geological conditions. He also said, such an intensive construction of a series of 200-meter-high dams is unprecedented in the history of dam building in the world. The slightest carelessness may lay a safety hazard. At this conference, Chinese experts on dams admitted that reservoir and dam construction in China have been done stage by stage. In the planning stage, they did not fully consider the dam type and capacity of reservoir dams at all levels in the tertiary development from the perspective of basin safety, nor did they fully consider the spread of basin safety risk from dam failure and risk containment.